Issue 143. Right away, the story starts out with Kintobor the AI telling Sonic in a panic that Metropolis is being attacked by a massive Badnik army, and Johnny's in the middle of it. Sonic says there's no time to get help and he'll have to come there alone. Minutes later, because it takes minutes for someone who runs at Sonic speed to get to a place that I'm sure isn't that far away from Emerald Hill Zone, Sonic sees nobody in the city just minutes after a Badnik army attack. When his guard is down, a rocket's thrown at his head, and then it turns out that a civilian had died by accident because he didn't mean to hit Sonic with his ball. Sonic is told that there's no Badnik army around, so Kintobor was given false information. Grimer brags about how he's hacked into Kintobor. I guess he snuck into Emerald Hill Zone's base that easily at midnight. And he brags that by using a video recording of a Badnik attack from 3 years ago, he completely fooled him. I gotta say I respect Grimer's intelligence. He's evil, but he at least has charisma and looks nervous, which is more than can be said for Snively or Eggman. Grimer plans to take control of Kintobor with the press of a button, and Kintobor's contact with Sonic cuts out. Sonic gets threatened by a giant green robot that dodges his spin dash, and the robot says he knows what Sonic's going to do before he does. The robot says that at the moment Sonic's considering using his super speed vortex, and he's right. The robot says he knows Sonic better than anyone, as I wonder why Sonic doesn't just use the vortex anyway, since I don't see why the robot would be able to not be affected by it. And the story ends with Sonic assuming that Kintobor intentionally betrayed him when he's an AI, and it should have been obvious from the signal cutting out after trying to help Sonic that Kintobor had been taken over. I like that Sonic ends the issue by apologizing about calling Kintobor a stupid computer earlier in the comic. But he should really know what's going on. And with Sonic being taunted by an evil head of Robotnik on a computer screen, I guess this is what I was remembering whenever I used to think of Fleetway Sonic as having a Robotnik that addresses people as a floating head. It just happened a lot later on than I assumed because the comics started out exactly like the games with no guts. And also, when I was first reading this comic, I assumed that this was going to be how Robotnik took over the world again. That maybe it wasn't really Robotnik that took over the world again, but it was Kintobor who was forced to do it. You know, at least with the Iron Nicole thing, Nicole got taken over because the Iron Queen was right in front of her. How that even happened was brain dead writing, but the fact remains that we saw her right next to her. Grimer, there's no explanation for how he took over a computer from a prison that he's trapped in and can't leave without revealing that he's escaped it. I guess he called an Eggman fanboy and told him to take over Kintobor by breaking into Sonic's base and putting a virus into his system. They better explain how they did this, and once they did, I bet it'll be much better written than how Nicole got possessed by just waltzing right up to an Electromage. I'd expect Kintobor to be taken over not so easily. In the next story, we start out in planet Romanus in the Zell Galaxy, whatever that is. At least say it's on the north side of the universe or something. And someone with evil black and red eyes tells an emperor that a computer scan detected 2 life forms out near the dome wall. The emperor asks how they could have escaped the slave pits. We see that the emperor is dressed in a toga like a Roman emperor, and he orders a hunt squad to be sent. Then Amy and Techno are warped in, with the Ring of Eternity being nice enough to pointlessly change their clothes to let them fit in. They immediately get zapped by an electronet thrown by the hunt squad before Techno could fly away with Amy, and they wake up in a slave pit. And one of the slaves explains that he used to be optimistic until he was forced to be a gladiator like the other slaves. He explains that they can't escape when the area is surrounded by an energy dome. He mentions that they have friends on the outside who wouldn't be able to break into the dome, as I wonder why nobody's questioned the fact that Amy and Techno are clearly of a different species, similar clothing or not. These blue people should all be recognizing them as aliens. I guess they're in a culture that's already got tons of experience with aliens on their planet, so they blend right in. For some reason, the girls are given 1 hour to prepare for combat. Why would it take an hour? Just pick a weapon and that's all you need. It turns out that they'll be forced to fight each other to the death because sadism. In the arena, they agree to play along until they can figure a way out of this. This is kind of a narrative cheat because they've already figured a way out of this. The story ends with Techno being told that if she doesn't finish Amy off, the Emperor will have all the other slaves executed, and the last panel is her shooting at her with a ray gun, an obvious money-grubbing cliffhanger. I'm sure she'll somehow be fine. I'm not genre blind. In the next story, after we see Tails lifting a barbell while flying, saying that he wants to impress Sonic and is sure to break his record by carrying more. The doorway to the Nameless Zone finally opens up again. It's been a while. He immediately meets up with Moraine, Errol the warrior's sister, who for some reason says he's a sight for sore eyes when he's not hurt or anything. In fact, he's better than ever. She says that she couldn't have kept the portal open a second longer because her magical power isn't very strong. Tails asks why it wasn't the Enchanter Kings who created the portal, and Moraine explains that they're being held prisoner in a dark castle just across from the village. Later, after dark, because it took that long for them to walk over to the castle, Tails reiterates for the audience's sake in a stilted way that would have been more natural if it came from Moraine telling him it all for the first time. He reiterates that the castle was built on Moraine's people's land by the Goblin Nation. And of course, Moraine's brother Errol was also captured because otherwise he'd be here. She says that she would have asked for Tails' help, but it's all she could think of. A goblin with an axe notices them when Moraine wanted to attack by surprise. You know, Moraine, maybe if you hadn't talked right across from him, he wouldn't have noticed you. Or not, because he's saying who's that in the shadows, so he should have seen them anyways. Perfectly fine, since they're 2 feet away from him. Moraine attacks the handle of the terrified goblin to break it, enjoying being violent and intimidating, and taunts the goblin about running away. Tails says that she let him run off to alert the entire castle that they're here when she should have captured him. What, with invisible rope? She should have killed him instead, which I would have expected of her, but Tails wouldn't have approved of that either. Moraine reluctantly admits that he's right, and she says that if they run around, they're bound to find something. Tails snarks, "Brilliant plan," having no self-awareness of how, when he last came to the Nameless Zone, he couldn't come up with a brilliant plan to save his life. The story ends with them all finding the Enchanter Kings having a drink in a room, sitting on chairs in front of the Goblin King. They don't look too scared. It would be a refreshing change of pace if the goblins were actually good guys who simply invited the Enchanter Kings over for some tea and talk of a truce, and Moraine was just overreacting and only thought they were kidnapped. That's just a guess. And the last story is just a reprint. The first story was by Nigel Kitching, and involves Grimer somehow taking over Kintobor's mind from prison to make him to a flying robot that can outpredict Sonic from being his friend earlier. They better explain how Grimer even did this from so far away, trapped in prison. It's a great concept. It's like this comic's equivalent to Iron Nicole, but without a nanite city. But I really wish Sonic just got what was going on right away, instead of instead of stupidly assuming Kintobor betrayed him on purpose, when it clearly cut out after doing nothing but trying to help him. The second story was by Lou Stringer, and it's about Amy and Techno being warped by the Ring of Eternity to a Roman alien gladiator arena. And the story ends in a greedy cliffhanger where Techno is forced to shoot at Amy to protect the lives of miserable slaves. I'm sure she'll be fine. Maybe Techno missed her. I like seeing the Roman aesthetic, but it's weird that nobody's calling Amy and Techno aliens. And it feels kind of lazy and uncreative to just completely rip off ancient Rome. And the final story is by Nigel again, and it's about Tails finally being called to the Nameless Zone again by Errol's sister, who wants to rescue the Enchanter Kings from the Goblin King's castle. It'll be nice to see an adventure of Tails in the Nameless Zone where Tails has a good personality instead of being a hopeless idiot, as he lampshades Moraine not having a brilliant plan, though he doesn't think of one himself. And then it turns out that the goblins aren't really mistreating the Enchanter Kings at all.